right then, Rachel. So welcome to Cinema Life and Everything. I'll try and remember what the name of the podcast is. How are you doing today?
Yeah, not too bad. I've just gotten over a little bit of a cold, so I'm feeling good today.
Good. Well, that's always good to hear. There's nothing wrong. Like, I don't like people being on the show or on the podcast and they're feeling all rough and stuff. I'm glad that you're on the right side of recovery.
Thank you.
So before we get going and before we hear about these three excellent film choices, two of which I'm very happy to say I'd never seen before, which was absolutely amazing. Well done. Would you like to tell the listeners or the viewers a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. My name's Rachel Acham Seagroatt. I was a professional wrestler for 6 years, and now I'm kind of moving into stunts and SPAC work and also accidentally acting. That's what happened recently, which I'm really, really enjoying. I'm basically making decisions out of bravery rather than fear, which is a nice change and it's fun.
Very nice. So, I mean, there is two things I really want to talk about. Bravery rather than fear. How would you determine that? Like, so choosing the least possible, like the worst, like, so the one that would cause the least damage and sort of flipping that and being more courageous and just wanting to choose the one that's going to do the greatest sense of adventure.
Yeah, basically. I feel like most of my life, because I'm quite a tentative, safe, worried person, I would always say no to things quite a lot because I'd be like, oh, that's unknown. What if something bad happens? What if I take this opportunity and then I fail and it all goes terribly? But that just kept me in one place, kind of unsatisfied. So now I'm trying to take the scarier option, which is to say yes, because I've never felt ready for anything. I never felt ready for wrestling matches. I never felt ready for, performing in any way. But you're never really going to feel ready for these things, but you just sort of have to do them anyway. Because if you're waiting to feel ready, then you'll never do it.
I completely agree. And do you find that as well? I mean, it happens to me a lot in wrestling, but I've also seen that in a personal training career as well, that you get people that just, they're always studying or they're always waiting till what if, and then they never take the leap. And I don't know about you, but it always feels to me someone somewhere had to act for the first time and there was no template to follow. Or, do wrestling for the first time, whatever, but they just did it. And I think there is that point to it. It's like, obviously you don't want to go in completely unprepared, but on the other side of things, you can wait too long as well and just hide in the safety of like always wanting to gain more knowledge or being more ready. And that's a sort of a fallacy in a way as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also when you say, someone had to be the first to do something, I think that kind of relates to everyone, where you always sort of feel alone in your decisions a lot of the time because you're making them for your life. So you're always sort of the first one to do it for you, if that makes sense. So even though people have paved the way and they've been wrestling forever, they've been bodybuilding forever, it's still something that you haven't done and it's a decision you're making just for yourself. So you're always going to feel a little bit alone in that, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. You're always going to be the one of one. As much as you can follow someone else's template or have people mentoring you or a life coach or whatever telling you now is the time, essentially you have to do it. I mean, I think we always have this thing where we look back towards our parents to encourage us or friends and family to encourage us, but at some point it's you on you and you just have to go, right, well, now's the time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we can all think of so many things that we regret not doing. But the list of things I regret doing is less. I can't think of any current examples where I thought, oh, I really regret saying yes to that or taking that opportunity, But the amount of things that I regret not doing, the examples just go pop, 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 because there's so many of them.
Do you think as well that what you've already said in that very short amount of time is like not being afraid of reinvention? I think some people achieve a degree of mastery in one thing and then they don't look at the fact that, I don't know, say to become a wrestler, you need to be able to research, you need to be able to dedicate, you need to be able to be consistent, you need to be able to rebrand yourself, be comfortable in front of people, performative, all of these things. But then people only can just see themselves as a wrestler, whereas they have all of these building blocks where they can become other things as well, but they just don't see how they can slot themselves or see themselves differently either.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, wrestling will become your life because it feels so big once you're in it, but it's so underground. You speak to someone on the street and they know about WWE or WWF, whatever they remember it as, but they don't know there's any wrestling going on. But because it's such an insular kind of passionate community, it will become your life. And because it's freelance, you're always doing more. You're like, what can I do more of? You know, do I have to train more? Do I have to do more promos, etc.? And it becomes your personality. It did for me, certainly, when I was wrestling, because wrestling was the first sort of thing I ever did in my life for myself, because I was always a bit of a dawdler. And when I found wrestling, I was like, finally I found my thing, and I made it my entire personality. And it's in a way that was fantastic, because it allowed me to meet new people and develop this amazing new skill set. But it did also end up feeling a little bit repressive, I think, after a while.
Definitely. And so, like, the thing, sorry, I'm shouting. The thing is as well, is like, do you find that you've been able to use like building blocks of that to, and I always love that you accidentally fell into something. I think everybody is stumbling forward if they allow themselves into new opportunities and new things, become aware. And it's just sort of thinking, oh, that makes me curious, or okay, I don't know exactly how to do that, but I've done this and that sort of works. And we're all just sort of MacGyvering or DIYing and bodging it together as best as we can to just sort of go, oh, well, this is not exactly how it's meant to be, but this is how I understand it. And this is how it works for me.
Yeah, 100%. And the amount of things I think I've fallen into more things than I've actually gone for. Like wrestling was an accident. I watched Lucha Underground, and then I thought I'll find a wrestling school, and it was my housemate who finally made me go. And I hadn't done any PE. I actually identified as someone who was, I'm creative, I don't do sports, you know. And then when I went there, I was like, oh, now I've got a character, and now I'm on shows, and now this is happening. It was all very much kind of swept up. So it's nice when you have those moments where you make an active decision to actually do something. I think they're very empowering. And falling into things is also very, very fortuitous, you know, because you find yourself in many different places that you don't know, you know, you never thought you'd be in. But making a decision to do something is always, you're just going to feel more like you're a driver in your own life, rather than being swept up in the sea and the tsunami of chance.
100%, and I agree as well. Like, when some people say they don't want to take any risks and they want to just stay comfortable, so to speak, they are actually still making a decision, and that decision of not changing. Things are still going to change, circumstances are still going to change around outside you. So what, like as you just said there, perfect way of putting it, why not be a driver in your own life? Why not have your own agency? Why not commit to change rather than just let change happen to you?
Yeah, exactly. It's scary, but once you get past the scary part, which is making the decision, it becomes easier, because, you know, your scale of things that are good and scary and bad goes like this every time you make a decision that's a scary new one, you know. So it gives you such a sense of not context, what am I looking at, a sense of perspective. So
yes,
for example, without wrestling, I would never have been brave enough to walk into a karate class or do any of the British Action Academy courses. You know, just being outside your comfort zone is amazing, but it took a long time to learn that, I think.
I think David Bowie, he does a quote that I've probably used too many times on this podcast already, but he said, as long as your feet aren't just touching the bottom of the pool, then you're just in a good place. As long as you're just outside your comfort zone, just on the right side of overwhelming, then some good change is happening. If you feel too comfortable, then you're not creating anything new within yourself. You're not taking that, you're not risking enough to make anything worthwhile. And I think that's right, you know, like a calculated risk, so to speak.
Yeah, agreed. And it's okay to take things slowly, you know.
Yeah.
Because big changes never stay. You know, you can wake up one day and you can say, all right, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. I'm going to drink this much water. I'm going to go and get 15,000 steps in, and I'm going to cut out gluten. And you try and do all those things at once. It's too much of a big change, and you never stick to it. And then when you stop, you feel like you failed, and you're never going to be the type of person who can live a healthy life. Or, you know, if we're taking this example, but if you wake up and you just say, I'm just going to set my alarm half an hour early and make sure that I drink a cup of water before I make my coffee, that's still pottering along towards a better life, you know.
100%. Small and manageable changes, like you say. If it's like learning, and you liken it to acting, learning a new accent, just picking up one word and just practicing that word till it sounds right, and then build it through, because it's like breadcrumbing it. If you give yourself small and manageable changes, and also congratulate yourselves on those little differences you make, those little successes you have, that's how life is. That's how success comes, not from one day, like you're saying, trying to do a complete life shift where you're like, your body and your brain will just rebel against it. It's too much to incorporate all at once.
Yeah, 100%. And especially when you're trying to push forward in something like we both are with our careers, we want to get to the next step, we want to do the next thing. I think it's healthy sometimes just to kind of look back and see where you've come from, because it's for example, you know, I get frustrated because I've got this plateau at the gym at the moment where I can't quite get an 80 kg squat, and I'm just like, oh god, I can't believe I can't get that. That's so annoying. I'm so bad. And then I look back and I was like, well, I used to struggle with 40.
Yeah.
So you know, it's all about that perspective, I think.
I think that's so true as well. I just think something I've started to journal again after years of it. I've started to journal again this year, and the end of the year, one of my end of year goals is I'm going to go back through my year's worth of journaling and read it all, and then just actually make a list of successes I've had. Do you feel that sometimes that there is this real impetus, against anyone celebrating successes? Like, you're almost seen as like, I shouldn't pat myself on the back about anything, but we're all, like you said there, we're also quick to judge ourselves negatively, to have that. I mean, it's important to have that driver to keep you going, to go, okay, what can I achieve today? What have I done to improve today? But also you need to sometimes go, can't always be a negative. It can't be, well, you didn't do that. You didn't do that. This hasn't been done yet. You need to keep the balance there, and you should be able to celebrate your successes. Too many people are always, okay, but what next? But what next? But what next?
Yeah.
And they never give themselves any joy, any moment of going, I should just enjoy this because I've done well today. I've done what I've needed to do.
Yeah, you need to keep your own goalposts in the same place for a while at least, because it's so easy to be like, you know, well, yeah, I did this bit which I like, but I'm not good yet because I haven't done this bit. So your goalposts are going, oh, okay, so we're here now. You know, where do you want us to go? And I also think it's partially a cultural thing as well, because, you know, in my experience in, like, you know, being a British person, it's you sort of have it's expected that you're sort of humble-ish about your stuff, and you go, oh no, it wasn't anything, you know, and it feels quite kind of it feels quite ostentatious to be like, look what I did, isn't this incredible? Because you think people are going to go, oh, they're bragging a bit, but I never think that when I see people's successes. I always think I'm always happy for them.
Good for you. Exactly. Yeah. And the squat one is a really good one as well, because I ever get that now and again, because it is. I always love the gym. I always respect people that go to the gym regularly as well, because it's you against you. Once you figure that out, and you can just enjoy it. And then now and again, I'll catch myself where there's a certain thing I want to achieve, like a muscle up or whatever. And I'm just like, have a word with yourself, Phil. You know, you've been coming to the gym this amount of years. You're doing it. You're still turning up. You're still doing it. And sometimes it's just like, all right, so today's not going to be, and this can be anything in life. It's not the special days where everything goes right, or there's a massive milestone. That's amazing. But then there are always many, many days of the ordinary, of just slow, consistent, average days that equal that amazing step. And it's important to recognize them as well. Not every day is going to be an Oscar win. Some days are just going to be, you get up, you brush your teeth, you do your day. And that's they're as important as the Oscar winning days, so to speak.
Yeah, and also the bad days also is important, because something I've definitely found since I've tried to, you know, I've started making these active decisions to say yes to things and to improve myself, is that progress doesn't look like this. It goes,
oh yes.
So it's tricky to kind of, on those bad days, appreciate who you are then, because you're like, oh, you know, I'm trying all these things, I must be a faker because look at me, I can't get out of bed today, blah blah blah. But you're a human with different days and different emotions and different moods, so you need to be kind to yourself, I suppose, is the bottom line.
100%. And you know, even athletes programming peaks and valleys, you have to have deload weeks and stuff. If you don't program in a deload week for yourself, physically or mentally, life will do it for you. Everyone needs a moment of like, and rest.
You need to be prepared for those.
Exactly. Right. Okay then. So films. Let's talk about films. Let's talk about cinema. But that was an amazing chat. Where do you want to start? I'm super impressed. Oh, actually, first of all, announce your 3 films, and then we can pick where you want to start.
Oh gosh. Oh no, decisions. I'm bad at decisions. Should we start with you? Wait, no, you choose. Sorry.
Oh no. It's your 3 film choices. I'm all right. I'll go with wherever, you know.
Shall we start with Time Bandits?
Ooh.
A lot of people have seen Time Bandits.
And then we can go all crazy in East.
A bit more obscure, yeah.
So yeah, the Terry Gilliam film, Time Bandits, which is sort of Monty Python, and I thought it was when I
Yeah.
first started to watch it, but then it's really, really not Monty Python at all. Goes
No.
very out there with Sean Connery as well. So
Yeah. I forgot. I always forget he's in it.
he's randomly as well. Yeah. So yeah, why Time Bandits? I mean, it's amazing, but why Time Bandits for you?
So Time Bandits, it's probably going to be, excuse me, it's probably going to be a theme for all three films. Is I've always liked films where they can represent a sort of what it's like to be in a dream, or like a kind of true fantasy, I suppose. And there's something about Time Bandits and the largeness of the scale of the environments, and there's scenes where they're just panning up this endless building and it just seems so huge and kind of insurmountable.
Yeah.
Where it just makes me think back to the weird dreams I had when I was a kid and I was ill. You have those fever dreams where things just are big and obscure and strange. And for me, Time Bandits, when I'm watching it, it makes me feel a little bit funny, but in a good way.
Yes.
And there were these, I can't remember what they're called, the hooded creatures with the horse faces.
Yes.
They're terrifying, terrified me. And they sort of, they come from an imagination, which I feel is a very dreamlike imagination. And it just gives you this sense of horror in a way, even though it's not a horror film, but it gives you this sense of horror that feels very much like you experienced horror as a child, I suppose. So and I watched Time Bandits very, very young, and it still has the same effect on me now when I watch it. It just feels so viscerally dreamlike, I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And the fact that the small child is the main character. And I think Terry has always had a way of Terry, like I know him, not Terry. Terry, he's always had a way of like having that imagery, even in something like The Fisher King, where people start dancing in Times Square. He's very linked into dream memory. I think that's why they resonate so strong. He's such a unique director in that sense. And I think as he's gone on, wouldn't say he's had to make more compromises, but I would say in his early work, where he was obviously completely unrestrained, one, how he is making something with such a small budget look so vast, and also just his purity of vision and getting across what he wants to say. How weird Time Bandit is in, as it almost has an anti-ending. It's an absolutely when I watched it again, absolutely. Oh, okay, that's what you're left with. That, and I appreciate that. I don't like depressing endings for the sake of depressing endings, but that is the story you wanted to tell. In fact, all these three films today, I really respected it. All three films, I was like, oh, that's how it's going to end. But this is a story we need to tell. Life isn't always sunshine, and or better still, you can make your own ending up. You don't need to be in handheld. I think that's what this film does as well. It's like you choose your choice of how this ends. I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. And I love when things are down to interpretation, because as much as when people make art, we have something that we want to say. Once it's out into the world, it's down to the interpretation of whoever encounters it, whoever reads it, whoever watches it. And two people can look at the same picture and have vastly different interpretations of what they're looking at. And that's why I sometimes endings are very satisfying, but I've always kind of struggled with endings. Like whenever I'm playing an epic video game and I know it's near the end, I avoid playing it for a while, because I just don't like the idea of endings. And I know that however good the ending is, I'll always be left with a feeling of sort of melancholy in a way. And so I like when there's a sort of more open-ended ending.
No,
it's it allows you sort of to continue the story in your head and to ask yourself questions which maybe haven't been answered, and hear other people's interpretations too. And it makes it feel like it goes on a little bit more in your head, I suppose.
I completely agree. And I think that's so important. I think coming from an acting perspective, when you get a script, you're visiting someone at a point in their lives, but you have to make up a backstory a lot of the times, or you have to understand what their motivations are, why they've become this person. And unless there's a finality about the character, like they die, you have to understand what they're going to do after as well. And I think that happens a lot more in video games now, particularly in a few of them I played recently, like Last of Us Part 2, where it's not all tied up in a bow. And even if there isn't another part, basically with all forms of entertainment, I like the idea that these characters existed before we started viewing them, and if they can, they're going to go on afterwards as well. Life doesn't just complete, and I don't think art should either. I think it should continue to ask questions and continue to evolve in your mind as well.
Yeah, 100%. And even like thinking back to Time Bandits, the thought that the kid, I think his name was, it was Kevin, I think the child's name was in the film. The fact that he now had to live on with the ending we got, and you know, with the adventures and the experience we just had, and you think, you know, and then it calls into question, like, did it actually happen? Was it just a result of like the smoke he was smelling, you know, that sent him on this adventure in his head? How is he going to cope afterwards? It's just, yeah, it's interesting to think about.
And you know, they've made a TV series of it now.
Bandits, they haven't.
Is it the guy that directed Thor? Wakiti? Oh, I can't remember. Taika Waititi. He's yeah. I literally, as I was watching it the other day, it popped up on my feed that they've made a 10 episode. So I mean, how do you feel about that? I'm sort of like, okay, if it's set in the same universe, but if you're trying to continue the story and it's a different director, I'm a bit like, do we need?
Yeah, it's a bit tricky because, I mean, I imagine, I mean, this is, if someone came to me and they said, we want you to make a TV series of Time Bandits, how do you want to do it? For me, I think the obvious choice would be to take the characters, the adventuring thief characters, and explore their adventures. I wouldn't like to hear any more about the kid, you know, because I feel like his addition to that universe was an anomaly. Because usually they just travel on their own. And I think if I was going to make a TV series of that, I would want it to follow the thieves, the time thieves adventures, because who doesn't, you know, time pirates? It's awesome, right?
No, I agree, but I'm always quite reticent when someone takes, if it's not the original director, or at least the director doesn't give their blessing, or isn't the original script writer. Are you going to be able to continue the adventures well enough? That's the thing. Have you got the same vision? I think one of the few ones for me was Denis Villeneuve in Blade Runner 2049. That's one of the few where I've gone, okay, that's a different director, but I can't see the joins, and it's the same universe, and I'm comfortable with this. But a lot of the time when it's a new director, it's like, it's just, all right, you might get the themes and stuff, but like you say, it's a different interpretation. It might not necessarily be bad, but it's just not going to be what I remember.
Yeah, that's true. But it does have the benefit, I think, whenever these things have, you know, new, like, for example, New Clangers and the series of The Dark Crystal that came out on Netflix, I think it was. It will always bring, I would think, a new audience to the original film, because everyone who was involved in that, or a lot of people, would be fans of the original text, because they would have watched it and thought, you know, let's make a, you know, maybe it's a money spinner, but also you have to have some people who are passionate in order to make this fan fiction. I guess we can call it fan fiction.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, that's actually a really, really good point. I didn't think of it like that as well. It might drag people back to the original and stuff as well, which is always good. That is a really good point. Do you have a favorite scene in Time Bandits at all?
I have scenes that I find more memorable than others. One of the most memorable scenes, I think, is when you first see, I think it's Randall, who puts his head out of the wardrobe first.
Yes.
And I think that's memorable because, again, I go back to the having those dreams as a child where you'd see things in your room and they'd kind of be shadowy and you wouldn't be sure if they were there, but, you know, you're pretty sure you were seeing what you were seeing. And, you know, when Kevin's just falling asleep and he opens his eyes and he sees this, and they've got the lighting of a dark bedroom so perfect. It's just so like, just looks so gorgeous. And then he just sticks his head out. That's always going to be one of my most memorable scenes, because it represents that sort of that line between the world sort of start to blur, then obviously it all goes mad. And probably the second one is one of the penultimate scenes when they're running away from, you know, they've got all these horse-headed creatures chasing them and stuff, and just, I can't remember the sound they make, but I remember it being such a kind of blood-curdling, awful sound, and just the height of these things, which is, of course, another thing that, you know, you have in these sorts of,
because you're small when you're,
yeah, exactly, and everything feels so like tall that you can't see the top of it, and it's just that the scale of those enemies was so good, I suppose.
I just think the thing that always blows me away about Terry Gilliam as well is it's all practical effects, because back then it had to be. And I mean, Dr. Parnassus, there is a bit of CGI in it, but even still back then, so much of it was done practically. Do you have a preference to practical over CGI, or are you whatever the story requires?
I think CGI is phenomenal.
Yes.
I think it's so interesting to see. Just look back at Gollum, right? Original Gollum from the Lord of the Rings
Very
is
good point.
starting to look so aged now, even though he was state of the art when he came out. And then you look back at things like Jurassic Park, like
I
Time
was just
Bandits,
going to
and
say Jurassic Park.
it doesn't
yeah.
age, you know,
No.
because they've made puppets, and puppetry, yes, technology can move on in how you know, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in puppetry, but CGI will always age quicker.
Yes.
And it will take you out of it, I think, eventually, unless you appreciate the charm of the sort of the bad CGI.
It's interesting as well, because I think certain companies had better computers or more time to do the CGI than others. So it's weird that you can have a film from last year with CGI that already looks dated compared to Jurassic Park, which used a mix of CGI and practical effects. And the CGI in that still looks like bang on. It's weird, like you say, it's weird how it works. But I don't know. I think for me as well, when something, especially from an acting perspective, when something physically exists, like I've been going to be doing something soon with a puppet, and which really underplays what it is. But when you see it and the scale of it, you can, I don't know, it just gives you something to play off. Even if, don't get me wrong, you can give me a tennis ball and a stick and go, that's a dragon. And I'm like, okay, that's or, you know, but when it's, even if it's a small miniature version of it, when you can actually see, oh, that's what it's going to look like on screen, it's just something very visceral about it, and something you can, and even if you're just watching it on the screen and as like you're not even acting in that film, I don't know, when it physically exists, you're like, okay, it's a lot more forgiving of that, I think.
Yeah, you can immerse yourself in it. If you can see there's a T-Rex puppet head here, you're like, okay, I can see its eyes, I can see its mouth, I can take in this creature. But like say, a tennis ball, I mean, if it's a testament to the skill of actors who have to work with those
Yes,
CGI conditions where it's green screen everything and stuff like that. But if I had, I mean, obviously, I think we'd always go for the puppets every time if we all had a preference. I think one of my favorite things about Terry Gilliam films is that his ideas are bigger than his budget. I always remember a story from Baron Munchausen, which is another one of his films I really like, where
that's great.
It's such a good film.
It's so good. If you suggested that one as well, I might have to watch that the weekend, actually. That I've got that, and I've got the making of it as well, Lost in La Mancha.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the whole making of it as well, where you just realise the wheels are falling off of it terribly, but he's still
honestly
really good, really, really good.
Yeah, and I love that he'll work around them. So the when he goes when he goes on the plane and he meets the gods, you know, they've got I can't remember, it's the blacksmith god and then Uma Thurman as gorgeous Venus. And initially they were meant to be actual giants, but the budget wouldn't allow it, so they made a joke out of it instead. So when the Baron and his friends were in that crater and they see all the giants looking down at them, and then one of the giants pulls him up, and then the Baron is taller than the giant, it was just perfect for that little gag. Because they had to work around budget. And I think indie films can do that a lot, because not that that's an indie film, but low budget films have to make those creative decisions because they don't necessarily have the budget to, you know, fix the weather, or, you know, if someone gets like a haircut or something, they have to be creative in their storytelling when they don't have the budget.
That's a wonderful bit in the film Evil Dead, actually, where this guy looks with a shower curtain and he's got like a shaggy haircut, and he turns around and it was like it'd been filmed like months afterwards, and he'd had to get a haircut for his job. And it's like, wow, they didn't even try and disguise that. But it's those sort of happy accidents, like you say, you can get that in the moment with acting and stuff as well, where someone forgets a line or something goes wrong or props falls over. But in that moment, you find something very authentic and very real, and it lends a charm to the moment that you can't get if you planned it. And I think that's what happens a lot in Gilliam films as well, that it just has that charm. It's like, well, this is what we've got, and you're going to enjoy it. You're almost supporting the underdog in the film itself.
Yeah, exactly. Happy accidents they do tend to yield good results. I remember early on in my when I was at a wrestling class, and someone sort of botched the move they wanted to do, but it was safe and fine. The trainer went, "That was amazing. That was a happy accident. That's your move now." And he just turned it into a move, you know.
Yes. That's good. It's always good when no one gets hurt, especially when it's a wrestling happy accident.
Yeah, exactly. No one got dropped on the head. Everyone's fine.
Always a win. So
Yeah.
where would you like to go next then? What would be your next film choice?
Should we do Picnic?
Oh, was it Picture Nickel? There's a
Picnic, yeah.
yeah, Big Nickel. I was watching that on the trailer. I was like, wow, I like that. But yeah, let's and guys and everyone watch this. It's absolutely incredible. It's shorter than your average film. I think about 75 79 minutes, but
Around that.
yeah, absolutely phenomenal. I'd never heard of it. You suggested it to me. I watched it. I was absolutely enthralled from beginning to end. Absolutely incredible. So why Picnic? Why Picnic? I'll stop doing that.
It's okay, don't worry. I think for similar reasons about, the dreamlike quality of
Yeah,
what we're
100%.
watching, because it feels very surreal when you're watching it. A lot of the acting's a bit strange, a lot of the shots are a bit weird, and the sound design is non-existent. So you'll go from someone saying their lines, and then you'll switch to the other person they're talking to, and there'll be this vent going in the background. And it's just like, it's the charm of low budget films, because arguably that's a messy thing to do, but I actually think that it helped immerse me in the kind of the strange environment these characters were existing in, where nothing quite made sense, because obviously they're in a mental health facility. They don't view time and they don't experience reality in the same way as each other. So I think it was actually, for me anyway, I might be defending it a bit too much, but I think the jarring way that the sound worked actually really benefited the theme of the film. And it was such a kind of a simple premise, which turned into such a large adventure, with essentially like three actors in it. Well, there's the supporting actors and stuff, but the characters, there are only three of them.
Yeah.
And the soundtrack the entire way through is just this very kind of uplifting piano music, and I've just always remembered it. I've always remembered the voices of the characters, and certain scenes, and how flagrant they must have been with the health and safety when they were running along these walls, because it's an indie film, and of course they don't have the budget for health and safety stuff. Yeah.
I think one thing that really leapt out after watching Time Bandits, and this, again, you talked about in Time Bandits, which leapt out at me as well, I think being very big and like the child being very small and having to look up. This goes the opposite way, that they are likened to angels a couple of times, and they're always up on walls, so they're always looking down at things. And like you say, that weird sense of perspective, because they exist outside of normal boundaries, because they're living in a mental health facility. So that slightly skewed vision on everything as well really lends itself to the camera work, and really lends itself to their perception of the world as well, and how they operate within it. Again, very dreamlike, very, I don't know if spiritual is the right word, but very, very sort of, outside of normal civilization and normal perspectives and stuff as well.
Yeah, agreed. And the fact that they were walking on walls this entire time, it was a perfect representation of the fact that they didn't exist in either of these sorts of places. They couldn't exist in the real world because they were meant to be locked up in this place, so they had to sort of walk the borderlines, I suppose, like behind the veil. They couldn't go down. They made a rule themselves, like, oh, we're not allowed down the wall, so they just didn't leave the wall at all. And
just like the sorry for spoilers here, but just the idea that the whole film, like you say, it's very uplifting, very upbeat, but a lot of the time they're talking about the end of the world, and the fact that they're going to go and have a picnic to go and watch the end of the world, and just that sense of that. But they're all like, we're all going to go, and I'm just like, yeah, but of course it would be like that, because they're so sure of themselves, and this is their life. I almost, the uplifting message for me was like finding the joy in the moment, like that you couldn't destroy them, because even though they'd obviously suffered so much, what brought them to that place, they had still made peace with it in a sense, and then they had found the way to live their lives and enjoy them.
Yeah, they had found a way to have agency in this very kind of restrictive environment, and they made their own adventure and their own plans, because they had to create their own world, because they were so stuck in this rigid place.
And it was just for me as well, just seeing the way they brought Coco into it, even the initial shot, which is, they never explain it, but I found it so beautiful, of laying the roses out along the roadway, and then the car just drives over them. And I was like, that again, nothing's explained, a lot like Time Bandits as well. And I don't really like, and the ending and what it means and stuff as well. I don't need it explained to me, because I always love a film when I'll watch it, and like I say, it's almost got a non sequitur ending, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'll go off, and then the next day, just the imagery was sticking with me so much. I was like, oh, that was a good one. Thank you, Rachel. That you know, like it's stuck in my memory now. There's certain visual like motifs and like you say, the sound design and stuff as well. I'm like, okay, that's gonna be percolating in there for a while now. I like that.
Some things you do just remember. You know, you remember scenes of things that you watched when you were younger and throughout your life, and they just sort of stay in your brain, because you can't remember everything that happens to you. You know, we can't remember everything that we did in childhood and stuff. We remember certain bits, but there are scenes that we remember and have an influence on us. And I think that's still the same when you watch things later. Like a lot of the shots in Picnic and the sounds, they will always be with me, because there was just something about it which felt so inspiring and made me want to create things. Because one thing it does do is it shows that you can tell a story with anything. You know, a guy with a camera and some willing actors, you can tell a story. Because the set was just, it was some random building and then just a city. You know, there was nothing fancy about it. They used what they had and they created something really memorable.
How did you find out about it? I have to ask, because I've never.
It's a good question. My sort of film awakening time was during college. I did film production at college, and I found a video on YouTube. I think I was actually watching a Tool music video, and they had stop motion in it. So there was a related video to that by a Czech filmmaker called Jan Svankmajer, and it was called Light, Darkness, Life, and it was a 10-minute short video of this plasticine. I think they were plasticine body parts that would go into this room and just sort of interact with each other, and you know, they'd become like a head and then shoulders and stuff, and then they'd become a person. And I just remember watching that, and it completely blew my mind, because I was brought up on weird stuff. Like my dad showed me the film Katsi when I was about 5 years old, and completely culturally alienating me from any of my peers. But and that, just watching that, I remember feeling that same feeling of uncanniness and feeling a little bit uncomfortable, that reminded me of watching Katsi when I was a kid. And from that, I just wanted to find the strangest, most obscure films I could. And I think at the time I Googled it, and it was on a Tumblr blog. And, you know, like, obscure films you must watch, and Picnic was one of them. And
yeah, amazing. I love the fact that you've just referenced music videos and stuff as well. So I was just going to say, so is there a favorite scene in Picnic? I mean, it's tricky because it is all like one big long unbroken scene, but is there a favorite scene for Picnic for you?
I mean, one of my favorite scenes is quite a big spoiler scene, but it's when you've got Samuji and you've got Coco, and then you have the other character, and I like his scene. I don't know how much I can go into spoilers.
Is this the thing?
Yeah.
Satori, that messed me up. I had to walk away from that a little bit. Talk about sound design. Well, sorry, spoilers, everyone. But there's a bit where he's got a suspected cracked skull or broken neck or something, and he's still trying to run on it. And it's
and put his head back together. But every time he puts his head back, it will lull. And it will make this horrible. There's this beautiful kind of piano soundtrack in the, and then you just hear a click, and it's just so, it's so sickening, and but also it's so perfect as well, because again, you don't have to have an amazing budget to make people recoil like that. It was, and the way that the actor was moving was just it was so long as well, the way that he struggled for so long and he didn't know what was going on, and he just kept trying to get up, because I need to go and continue my business,
get back on the wall,
because of his injury, he just couldn't make it. And I thought that was a really beautiful scene, as grim as it was.
There was something in that film that really struck me, was the sense of movement. I know Coco, sorry, I've forgotten the actor's name, but they were a pop star, but all three of them
Yeah.
seem to have a certain sense of dance training or movement training, that there was just something like, even just be able to scale and move along the walls like that. There, yeah, again, that dreamlike or something very balletic and poetic in how they were moving, and even the ending scene, which I won't ruin, just again something very graceful and dance-like in it as well, like almost bowing to the audience at the end. Incredibly emotive film. Thank you for picking that one. I'm so glad we could find it online.
Me too.
Yeah, it's yeah, how do I say this? Probably where you'd be watching this podcast, you can find it. that's the most work, like that's not hard to figure out at all.
No.
Yeah, but it's it's well worth, but if it's got Josh Brolin in it, don't watch that one. That's the wrong one.
Yeah. I discovered that trying to find this one.
Yeah, don't watch that. That's a completely different film. So, okay, on to the last one, which again, absolutely finished watching it last night, blown away again. Cannot believe it's the same actor in both films who's also in Itchy the Killer.
I
know. Kenji in this as well. Last Life in the Universe. Why this? I mean, this one even more so. Why this one?
I don't think that there's been a film that's had that's been more memorable for me than this one. Again, it was during my kind of my film discovery renaissance. I found it on a similar list, I think, to Picnic, just these obscure film blogs. And I remember I would find the film I wanted to watch, and I would, I'd search the internet for it, I'd find it, and then I'd just sit down for an evening and watch it. I don't do that anymore. I really should. But Last Life in the Universe is, I mean, it's got more budget than Picnic. The thing I like about it is it's two very different characters. There's only really two main characters in this film, and they're so different. One's quite chaotic in the way she lives her life, and the other one is very stringent, but they are both quite calm despite that. And the fact that they can only really communicate in English because, one speaks Thai and one speaks Japanese, and they're trying to kind of pick up each other's languages, and it gives the I think it gave the writers a really good opportunity to just write conversation, because I think writers love it when they don't have to progress the story. They can just write a scene between these two characters where they're trying to work out each other's language. And the way it was shot was just so beautiful. The color grading throughout the scenes to give these different to make you feel different things. At the first shots where you see Kenji's apartment, all his shoes are lined up with the days of the week written, and it's very kind of blue and green. And as we go into Noise World, it's much more kind of orangey and red. And if someone, I was saying to my friend before I came with this podcast, because I was like, Phil's going to ask me to describe this film, and I don't know how to say what it's about and do it justice, because I mean, can you really sum up that film? Because I can't really.
It's, again, you've hit upon the biggest takeaway I got from watching these three films again quickly back to back was, one, I need to sit down, and two was, like, again, very dreamlike. Like, there was a few bits in this where the character switches very suddenly, and you're like, well, did I just imagine that? What's gone on there? There's a scene where it does go very dreamlike, with all the objects floating around and the house magically cleaning itself. And like you say, color changes, the music, sometimes the scene not necessarily following on from what you've just seen before. But again, in terms of those visual imageries and the way, I'm looking for explanation as well. How you can have two people being the complete opposites of each other, not really talking about the big problems, but or talking about their relationship, but also discussing it so much. But again, not spoon feeding the audience and going, even the ending, going, what do you want? What do you want it to be? Because it can be that, and we're not going to tell you. And also being really daring and having Takashi Mike in it, in it, and having a picture of Itchy the Killer just before you see the same actor show up in it. I'm like, I stopped it. We looked at IMDb. I went, that's bloody bold. You're going, the same guy. And I was just like, wow. But that in a way, that's for a director to do that and go, this isn't this film, that film exists in this universe,
Yeah.
but you're not going to know this character is completely different. Just in balls out filmmaking, or just very like bravado in the filmmaking. And yeah, again, just so unique, so wonderful. It was such a beautifully managed choice. Of the three you chose incredibly well, like I've got to say.
I thought it was going to be harder, honestly, when you said, right, I want a list of 3 films. I went, oh no, oh no. What are they going to say?
Question.
It is, but actually, when you prompted me last week, it was really easy to make my list. I just said, oh, it's Last Life at the Universe at the top.
Yeah.
And then, and I kind of picked Picnic from the recess of my brain as a film that will always be a favorite film, and Time Bandits was obviously a shoe-in. But
and even your fourth choice being The Fall, I mean, there was no bad choices there. I was like, oh my word, for a runner-up, that's a hell of a choice as well. So.
Definitely, I think I'm showing my taste quite a lot as well, because I didn't realize how similar all these sort of films were to each other in their sort of some of their themes and the way they're shot and the way they look. But one of the things that I love most about Last Life in the Universe is, the main character Kenji, very calm, very organized, quite shy, but he's got this backstory which is quite violent if you take the clues into account. The fact that where he is now, and his brother, and Takashi Miike and the characters that are looking for him. And then there is a reveal when you see his back tattoo, and you're like, hold on, yeah. I know who has back tattoos. Oh, okay, this makes a bit more. This it fits more of the puzzle together.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, they didn't have to go, hey. They just, this is what I think this is one of the things, having that respect for the audience. Don't get me wrong, there are some films there that they direct your eye completely. The music is going to be exactly like this because they want you to feel that way, exactly. Yeah. And I get that. There is a time and a place for everything like that. But I found it very refreshing to be able to, one, watch a film that was under an hour and a half long, which was Picnic, and also but told everything it needed to say, nothing superfluous. That was as long as it needed to be. And then with Last Life in the Universe, having this whimsical nature, but never explaining itself, nor needing to. You take what you want from this. You enjoy what you want. But again, art should inspire conversation. It should inspire thought. It shouldn't just be, okay, this is it, mental McDonald's, see you later.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that it was so minimalist as well. Just kind of going back to Last Life in the Universe, I'm just thinking back to everything. I mean, I suppose arguably Last Life in the Universe is the most minimal because it gives you a sense of emptiness, which I find quite comforting in a way. Like a lot of the books I like stories about one character existing in a world of nothing. Like I Am Legend is a book I really like because it's just about this one guy working through being the only one who exists, or to his knowledge. And I love the fact that the film presented this very empty world in a way. You see a swimming pool that was empty and a flat that was empty, and I think the most people you see is maybe when he's in a library, but just showing you one shot of, for example, the shoes, or everything laid out perfectly. It tells you so much without showing you things, and I just think that's quite hard to do, because as a student filmmaker back in the day, I tried to do that, and it is not as easy as it looks, But I just think it was so creative.
And just like why he's ended up like that, or what he could have been doing before to be that so meticulous and stuff. Like I say, as soon as the film ended, my brain was bubbling away of like, oh, okay, that's why that, and all of it. I also found his OCD incredibly calming. Which I don't
Wasn't it just?
Oh God, the way he would order things and stuff and order his books, and I was like, oh, the colours and the lines.
I know. down to
the
the very last scene as well. He was making sure things were at the right angle, because that was just part of his personality. But
I did love that as well at the end, though, when he sort of he booted it, and also I found the significance in him smoking as well at the end, that he had taken on some of her personality. He had been able to, I don't know, just those small little victories, but again, take what you want from it. It was like, it was just that beauty of it, that this is what we're going to give you. But if you believe this, you believe it. If you don't, you don't. But it's just, yeah. Again, the other place where you could find Picnic, you can probably find this, and it's and it's well, or you know, like the thing is, this is frustrating. I'd love to discuss with you quickly as well. Sometimes such amazing films like this, they're just not available. Like, even if you want to go and buy it on DVD, it's almost impossible to get now. Such amazing art is just getting lost, and unless someone like yourself carries it on and suggests it, and it gets, you know, put on his podcast, and hopefully someone else will listen to it and go and find it, that wow, like this is so valid, so pertinent, so important for people to watch today, such an important artifact, and it's just so tricky to get, and it shouldn't be at all.
I mean, especially nowadays, I would say, I don't think I would have the same energy, you know, existing as we do in 2023, with the abundance of films, the abundance of music, the abundance of everything, to go out and find these little obscure films. Because we don't allow ourselves to be bored nowadays, you know.
No.
You know, if we're bored, I mean, I'll look at Instagram, I'll look at some reels, I'll do something that will entertain me. I'll have a YouTube video playing on my phone, and I'll be playing a game. You know, I don't allow myself to just be bored. But when there was, you know, I'm going to sound like such an old complainer here, but when there was less choice, you had to have a moment to be bored and think, what am I going to do with my boredom? And then you have to be curious and seek out something that will entertain you, and something that will move you and inspire you. Because I was always seeking out inspiration. There are still some films that I can't find. There is this have you seen Lady Vengeance?
Yeah, Sympathy. Yeah. Beautiful.
So it's fantastic. But there is a version of that film which I think is only available. I can't find it anywhere, and it fades all the way through to black and white, and I'm desperate to find it, but I don't think I'm in the right DVD region and stuff like that. And
let's have a chat after the podcast.
Yes, I'm very excited.
I may have that. I also have the version of Kill Bill where it's both Kill Bills launched together.
Oh, really?
Yes. So,
oh my gosh, you've been busy on the internet.
But again, it's not me being that version of sympathy of Lady Vengeance is incredible, and it's so beautiful, and it should be available. It was available for a time. For me, to your point, it would be, I would go to HMV or Our Price when it was a thing, and you'd have the World Cinema section.
World Cinema, yeah.
And I don't know how that was created, or the fact that it seemed easier to get films back then than it is now. Like, with all of the streaming services and all of the ways you can find films, you should. But back then, so I'd just go through the World Cinema, you'd pick up the box. You may not have heard of it, but that box looks cool. Sympathy of Lady Vengeance, I'll give that a go. And you get it, you'd watch it, you return it. I mean, I would sort of return it and get money back, but not like return it for a refund. Like, you could sell it back to HMV back then. And with the credits that I had, I would get another film, and that would be because that was the cool stuff. These amazing films. It wasn't, I love Hollywood, don't get me wrong, but these were the crazy indie German European was it Tartan films or something, when it was all the Asia films and stuff, where you're just like, this stuff's incredible. And not all of it was perfect, some of it was very low budget, but my god, did it make you think. It felt like you said earlier on when your dad showed you that film of like, I don't know how I feel about this, and I don't know I should be watching this, but at least it's true, at least it's authentic, it's something that's very real and visceral.
Yeah, exactly. And I do miss the days where I went into a shop to browse DVDs, because I would go into, like you say, HMV, and I'd just spend ages just poring over the World Cinema section, or you know, wherever, just finding what to spend my $7.99 on or something. There's something about how I exist today, and I think how a lot of people exist, where it seems like a waste of time to browse now. And sometimes it even feels like a waste of time to sit and watch a film, because you think, oh, blimey, a film is going to take 2 hours, and I have to decide which one to watch, I have to set myself up and stuff. It was so easy back when I was at college, and now it just seems like a chore to just sit with something and to find what you want to watch. And and even to, if we're talking about creating something, to feel like you're creating something just for the joy of it, rather than because you want to post it online or you want to monetize it. Those sorts of those aspects of stuff that you would do, I find it tricky to reconcile it with the current world we live in, actually. I was at a Japanese Christmas market event this weekend in London, and there were these 3 guys playing shamisen, these Japanese instruments. Yep. And I've had in the corner of my room for years a hammered dulcimer, which is this kind of wooden instrument with strings along the top. And it's just been there. And I think if I just got that out for half an hour every day, and I wasn't worried about, you know, I could be progressing my career, or I could be training this, blah, 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 and I could just play for the joy of it, I think I would be much happier, and I'd be much more content with just sitting with, you know, and pondering and being in peace, you know.
And it's funny talking about cross-sectional learning and stuff, that in giving yourself that time of half an hour's joy of doing something which doesn't feel specific to your career, dare say, would actually give you, probably free up your brain space, to then the next day when you go back to thinking about your career, will give you a different perspective. Almost if you're up on that metaphorical wall looking at people singing hymns or something as well. But yeah, giving yourself that joy, that you don't have to be absorbing or thinking it's valid or that it's productive to something else. Just going, I want to play that because I want to play that. Yeah.
It goes back to what we were saying right at the beginning about looking back at your journey and taking time to appreciate the now and the then, and just kind of living in the moment. And part of living in the moment is making sure you're taking care of who you are and you're feeding your creative side, because, you know, we're both creatives going into creative industries. We can't just have our nose to the grindstone all the time. You know, we need to do this course, and we need to do this, and we need to email these people. We need to have moments where we just, you know, have a look at a bookshelf, or play our instrument, or find an obscure Thai film, you know, and just make arrangements to watch it, because it's all part of your growth as a person, and it will make you a better creative in the long run.
It's completely what we've spoken away from this podcast as well, about being aligned as well. Sometimes just creating something for the joy of creating it. Yeah, all right. Sometimes as a side effect of going to the gym, you will look a certain way aesthetically. By doing reading a certain book, 10 years down the line, it may play into a certain character you want to play, but maybe at that time you just wanted to read that book. Maybe you just, you know, maybe you just want to, something I have to do quite a lot, I just want to watch a film. I won't dissect the acting. I'm just like, no, I'm enjoying this for the sake of enjoying it. I don't, oh, did you see what it did there? Why did that make me feel like that? No, just, you know, like wrestling as well, just enjoy the match.
I was just thinking,
yeah, don't pull it to me. But yeah, it always comes back, like say, just these different point of references. But I do hope you get on your instrument soon, because I've got a guitar in my front room which I got the Fender lessons for.
We can have a jam.
We should have it. That'd be, I reckon it would sound amazing as well.
Yeah, I will. I was going to get it out before the podcast, ran out of time. I think after this I will just get it out and just tune it, just so it's in a position where I can play it, you know.
Do you know that's the funny thing as well, talking about doing small minimal things? That's what happened the other day. I was hoovering and the guitar fell forward out of its stand, so I just picked it up for a second. As soon as I picked it up in my hand, I just hit some of the frets on it, and it made a noise, and I was like, oh. And I just sat there for about 10 minutes strumming it and doing some different chords, and I was like, that felt great, and I need to do more of that. But now I need to do more of it. But
yeah, exactly. That is the true joy of tidying up, is finding things you're like, oh, I remember this hat, or this Game Boy, or this ukulele, and you just think, oh, have a go at this. You never know where it will take you.
Like life, you know, you never know. So it's always good to just do a little bit of tidying up again. Hence we tie back into Last Life in the Universe as well.
Exactly. Be more like Kenji.
Be more like Kenji in some ways. Anyway.
Indeed.
Well, listen, Rachel, thank you so much. 3 amazing films. More than ever, anyone listening to this, anyone watching that, please seek those 3 films out. They are absolutely amazing. Incredible choices. 3 of my favorites, actually. So thank you so much for taking the time for doing this. And is there anywhere where you'd like people to follow you or check anything out that's coming out soon? Please let us know, and I'll stick it in the show notes as well.
So I am on Instagram. Just search Rachel Acham Seagroatt. I will be there. We have Mythos Ragnarök on Monday at the Clapham Grand. Tickets may still be available. It's a Norse mythology as told via the art of professional wrestling. It's one of the coolest things I do, and it was honestly, Phil has seen it.
I can't say it literally left me speechless. How to get an old thing in wrestling and make it completely new. And for me, as much as watching the show, watching the audiences reacting that way and believing again in magic, yes.
Yeah.
You smash it. Go and see it 100%. Anyone, even if this gets released past that, seek out Mythos Ragnarök, because it is just absolutely phenomenal from top to bottom.
You'll never see anything like it again. It's the last show in the UK for a while, so just get on there.
Okay. Well, I'll stick a note out on Instagram as well. Brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much. Take care of yourself, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you on a set soon. But until then, I'll mention the other film in a minute as well.
Of course. I'll speak to you soon.
Take care. All the best. Bye now.
Bye.